Hey Ripsy, this is dominating Deandre Ayton. For the latest news and the best views, here's the Blazers Balcony with Brooke Olzendam and Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to the Blazers Balcony, episode 112.
Where the players dwell.
The Blazers Balcony, that's good. I am Casey Holdahl. That late 90s R&B aficionado Brooke Olzendam is here as well in her palatial estate in southwest Portland, where the holiday tree is still going strong.
It's a secondary tree, as I told you.
Well, like I said holiday tree.
That's
I didn't say Christmas tree.
You did. The Christmas tree in the living room is gone, packed away. So sad. But my dad brought this one down. It was in his condo up in Seattle. It's fake, but it's really pretty perfect when you look at it. I mean,
it's a nice tree.
Yeah, it's a nice tree. And it's in the kitchen area, dining room area, which we're sitting, and it was the second, as I said, secondary. But I've decided, my mom kind of had something like this at her last house, which wasn't a tree, but it was kind of like some sort of thing in the corner that you could put things on, like, and they had lights on it, and they put different holiday stuff, like for Halloween, for all the things, Thanksgiving. So I think we're going to do that. I'm going to get some heart stuff, put it up for Valentine's. It's going to be a Valentine's Day tree.
Yeah.
Then it'll be, what's after that? What's next after that?
Easter. St. Patrick's is in March.
And we'll
then
do green.
Easter in April.
Yeah, I think it'll be kind of fun. And it brings a little extra, excitement and a little happiness into this. Not normally sad dining room. It's actually it's a nice dining room.
It's a nice home. It's warm. Yeah, it's not
nice
like it's not like all white and glass and cold.
God, definitely not. It's made in the 70s.
It's
not too much modern about it, but it's lovely. So yeah, I like it, and we're gonna keep it around for a while until other things change. Otherwise, I think I kind of like it.
I mean, yeah, and with that's a good point too. That being Oregonians, I mean, Washingtonians, you get live trees. Like I've never had a fake tree in a house my entire life, because literally the house I grew up in was a Christmas tree farm was right behind it. So it's like this is part of the culture out here. But if you do have a fake tree, like why put it away? Like it looks nice. Like it's like any other like fake plant, and actually I would say that at least in terms of fake plants, like fake trees, they've worked them to a place where if this was during the wintertime, I would assume that was a real tree. So
yeah, no, I'm with you. It's fun. And like I said, the lights are going to come down. We still have some Christmas stuff on there. I got to get that down.
See, what I say, if you had pink lights, like you could just, and maybe that's, I wonder if do they have strings of lights that you can change the color on?
At this point,
because
they
LEDs,
probably
like
do.
You can do that super easy. So yeah, if you bought like
that's
a couple strings of lights that you could change colors on, it could be, so you could do like pink or red for Valentine's Day, or for Brooke Hearts Your Heart month.
There you go.
You could do like a pastel for Easter. You obviously green for green on green, but you can the green pops a little bit there too.
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah, this is good stuff for a podcast too, to be describing a tree that
sure,
we're
everyone there
can
can
I wanted to
see
take
what
it
we're
this direction
talking
exactly.
They can visualize.
Yeah, exactly. So.
But actually, I will say it's very to your point about being home and my palatial estate. It is so nice to be home for an extended period of time. All on the road. I think we all kept talking about it. Like, and people, because when we were in Denver for 2 games, so we were there for a while, and I already know the ushers and people that work around where I've always been in the same spot there, and so you get to know everybody, and all of them were like, where are you heading after this? I was like, if you can believe it, we're heading home for a while. And so I just had the same conversation with a lot of different people about being home for a while. And I said, we've had, very long road trip, a couple pretty decently long road trips. So it seems kind of small, but it's a big deal for us to be home even for a week, let alone, almost not even, I won't say a full month, but I mean, a couple weeks.
I mean, the team doesn't have another road game until March 1st.
There you go.
And
I mean, that's amazing.
It's February 6th right now. So basically, to your point, Brooke, almost the entire month of February. Very similar to kind of December, where it's like there was only a few road trips in December, and then played a bunch of games on the road in January. And then February we're going to be home. And then in March we have another 2-week road trip. And to your point, Brooke, so not only a lot of time at home coming up here, but also just a lot of downtime. I mean, we're recording this on Tuesday. Team got back Sunday night, then don't have a game on Monday. Don't have a game today, obviously. Don't have a game on Wednesday. Don't play again until Thursday when they host the Detroit Pistons. Friday off, Saturday hosting CJ McCollum and the New Orleans Pelicans, and then 3 days off, and then 2 versus the Timberwolves, 13th and the 15th, and then the All-Star break. So,
crazy.
and then even after the All-Star break, 3 games at home after the break. So when you're counting it up, this is technically the Blazers' longest homestand of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, and it spans basically almost the entire month of February. So, and particularly with the trade deadline coming this week, if the team makes a move, obviously they're going to have to kind of figure out what that looks like in terms of who the players that they have available. And if they don't make a move, then it's like, hey, we got some practice time here. We've already been playing better basketball. We've been healthier, so we've had a lot of people in the lineup. Mm-hmm. And we're starting to play the way that I think we saw the team play earlier in the season, where it was like, yeah, are they winning? No. But they look like they have a chance in these games.
Oh,
both
absolutely.
games in Denver, like they could have, I wouldn't say easily have won those games because the Nuggets are the defending champs, but definitely they were game in both of those.
Well, very competitive.
And in that second game, even being down a number of guys, like jumped out to a lead. And, I had said this on my other crappier podcast that like they are a team now where you can't just like roll the ball out and beat the Trailblazers. Like you're going to have to go and beat them.
Totally.
And like if you're a team like the Nuggets, maybe that means that you got to really knuckle down for 2 quarters and you can win, but it's not like it was where, and I think that road trip still shades, I think, a lot of the way that I view this team sometimes, because it's like, I compare the way that they're playing always to like how bad they were on that trip. And so watching the games versus Denver, not to mention obviously the wins versus Philadelphia and our good friend Damian Lillard and the Bucks, like they're just they look like a team that like, yeah, they're gonna beat you on a night-to-night basis, probably not, but like they can jump up and surprise you. Like, if a couple guys have decent nights, they've got a deep enough bench now to where it's like, yeah, we're not gonna get run out of the building. We're not going to, as soon as we go to the bench, fall apart. And you're not going to be able to roll out a lineup where you're missing a bunch of guys, or where you're looking at the Blazers and you're like, maybe we get some guys some rest tonight. Like they're not that team right now. Like you gotta play them tough. And I think the Nuggets probably realized that in the second game. The first game, I think like half the team, including Nikola Jokic, was listed as questionable. And I think maybe that's like a setup for like, we'll see how this goes tonight, and then maybe in the second game, we can maybe give some guys some rest. Not the case. Like they had to go out and win that game in the fourth quarter, and then I think in the subsequent game they're like, well, like we can't rest guys. We gotta play, and that might sound kind of like faint praise, but I legitimately like I think it's a good thing for this team, and I think it shows a certain level of growth and just an acceptance that like they're playing decent basketball right now, much better than they were playing 3-4 weeks ago.
Well, it was interesting. So the first game, obviously a slow start. If you guys remember the first game in Denver, slow start, kind of got in the hole earlier and didn't look good. But they figured their way out of it, and in the locker room post game, a lot of them did say, "Yeah, I mean, we talk about it. It is different. I mean, people might think that we over talk about it, but it is to get used to that sea level. It is. It takes a while when you're running up and down the floor.
Anyone who's ever tried to exercise at elevation would know that. Like when we were in Utah the first time this year, I went out for a run, and Utah is not even at the same elevation that Denver is. I get like a quarter mile out, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, I feel terrible.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, right. We're at like 3,000 feet.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Like that first quarter of that first game, I think that was the first time they played in Denver this season. Yeah, that'll hit you.
So you could tell, and then after the game, the guys talked about it, like I said, but they really kind of, after they got acclimated, if you will, they started playing really good basketball. And so the second, third, and fourth quarters, I mean, scrap the first one. That was they easily could have won that game. But what they wanted to focus on, and what they also talked about post game in the second game, was they wanted to carry over how they finished game one into the beginning of game two, and they definitely did that. They got off to a great start on the second game, and obviously that had been the third night that we had been in Denver. So you have to believe your body's ready to roll and kind of has figured it all out. So we did see really kind of just an extension of that third and fourth quarter of game one into the beginning of game two. And they got off to such a great start. They were up 30-20 at one point, and everything was clicking. They were looking great. You know, Chris Murray getting his first start looked solid. And the coach always says, he's like, I love it when he says, he's like, Chris is the kind of guy that understands the assignment. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we talk about how studious, but he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's just out there, like, he plays the game the right way and plays the game plan the right way, which is, you know, coach's dream. So Chris Murray came out, did not look intimidated by the task at hand. Didn't have, you know, a breakout game, but, you know, did a lot of little things well, which was what was being asked of him. And they looked good, but they just, I don't want to say ran out of gas. I don't even know if that's it. But then you saw Denver becoming Denver. Yeah. And Nikola is and I don't know if you saw what Coach Billups had to say about him, but we did my open on that. I asked him, you know, how unique of a player is he, and can you even say he's? I don't love the question, like who is the Nikola Jokic of your era? Because first of all, I don't think there was one. Yeah. But I said, is there anyone that you could even say was similar? And he said, before I could even get into it, he said with absolute like he meant it. He goes, he's the best passer I've ever seen, and not just for a big man, like ever. Yeah. I was like, whoa! It was kind of one of those statements, like, wow, that's a bold statement. Yeah. And so then he went into saying, like, he saw. Disagree, by the way. You what? I disagree, by the way. Well, everyone's allowed. As did
Kevin and Lamar as well. I like the way that they played that.
Larry Bird, John Stockton.
Yeah, you know. I mean, I wouldn't even say any of those guys, but yeah.
Well, I'm just saying they threw out some other names, Isaiah. But maybe he's thinking of factors too, like with. I don't know. I'm trying to.
Nikola Jokic is a fantastic.
Yes,
passer.
He's a fantastic passer.
I don't want to take anything away from him, but you know, the league's been around for a while.
So, but it was a great soundbite for our open.
Absolutely.
And so we talked all about that, and then he said, you know, he's played against Arvydas Sabonis later in his career, and he believes or would like to think that, you know, Nikola is kind of like what Arvydas was at the beginning of his career. Anyways, so that was so my point is, Jokic started being Jokic, and that is such a difficult player to guard. And down the stretch, you just saw why they are the reigning champs. Yeah. And it wasn't. I'm not taking anything away from how the Blazers played. They didn't like drop off. They didn't. You know, shots weren't falling as well in the second half. They would say that. Coach said that. And it was hard to maintain that level of play against such a talented Denver team. So nothing to hang your head about in either of those two games. They gave it everything they had, and I just continue to talk about it, and maybe you were going to bring it up yourself, but DA just playing at a crazy level, and he and Anthony are really starting to really figure each other out and where each other wants the ball, and DA had some great passes out to the three that were like really great floor vision from a big man, and very patient, he'd get the ball in the paint. And if he decided, I'm going to take it, or maybe his little baby hook, or a mid-range, I always trust that shot from him. But there were times where maybe it wasn't there for him, and he waited and maybe saw a guy out of the corner of his eye. No, that's not the right pass. And then patient enough to pivot, look to the other side, and find the right guy for the right shot. And I was impressed with his patience and the way he saw the floor and found his teammates. So lots of good things to take away from that road trip. Even though they were both losses, but they were close, even felt closer than maybe the final score.
And they covered in both those games, too, by the way.
Thank goodness.
That's the important thing. Good teams win, great teams cover, bro. And the thing about those two games, too, and you kind of talk about Jokic being Jokic, and, when you cover the NBA for a while, those two games in Denver were exactly kind of what I thought they would be, especially in terms of, I know the Blazers are playing better. I know they're going to give them games in these ones. But I also know that in the fourth quarter, the Nuggets, being as good as they are going to be like, all right, let's get down to business here, guys, and win this one. So you're not – so part of that is the Blazers and just not kind of being on that level just yet. Part of that is the Nuggets and being on that level. Mm-hmm. And part of it is, you're playing in Denver, you're on the road, and they're a very good team anyways. They rarely lose at home. The Blazers have only beaten Denver at home in the regular season. I think actually Kevin mentioned it. I think it doesn't happen very often. I think maybe
the only one
once
I can
in the last,
currently remember is in the playoffs.
Well, right, and in playoffs, that's what we all remember is they've won a couple games there in the playoffs.
But when that's the only one you can remember, that's not good.
Exactly. And so, which also just goes to show that on a random Thursday night in Denver, when a game 63 at that elevation, like it can be hard to be like, all right, guys, let's get to this. And it's like, and so when you see games there, sometimes you're like, yeah, if this was a playoff game or like they had a couple days to kind of prepare and to rest up, like you feel better about it. But if they're just like, on a road trip, second night of back-to-back, or, you're coming into town for a couple of games, like, that you're going to kind of run into it.
Wouldn't it be interesting to do a scientific experiment, like the experts come in and say how much of truly an edge that Denver gets because they are already acclimated to their home, and other teams coming in, like if they could get it down to like maybe I'm not saying that there's no conspiracy theory here. I'm just saying I'm just be curious if like they came into this whole study on saying that they actually have like a 2.3 point advantage just because it takes the other team a while to get used to it.
And I mean, like they have done studies about how long it does take to acclimate to elevation, and it's a long time. I think it's something like 7 to 10 days. So even when you come early to be like, oh, we're going to get here early, we're going to get acclimated, it's like, I think there's probably some placebo effect there that does have an influence. But I think it actually does take longer. And I mean, but everyone knows that too, because I mean, there's a reason why like distance runners go and train in Mexico City or in Colorado Springs. Because it's like at elevation, like when you become accustomed to that, you get the benefits of being able to operate in thinner air. And so, I mean, like it would be awesome if they could like really do a study on that. Like you have to control for so many variables and I mean, NBA players have notoriously a lot of variables. So like to be able to like distill it down to like this guy versus this guy, and this is the benefit you get. They'd have to really put some work into it, but I would like to see that as well, Brooke. I think that would be fun.
Interesting.
And yeah, exactly. And they like those are the kind of things where like sometimes they talk about when they're negotiating new CBAs, and it's like, well, there's no tax in Florida. Is it really fair that basically if you're getting $20 million in Florida with no tax, you're getting $20 million as opposed to, say, California, where if you're getting paid $20 million, you're maybe seeing 13 of that. And like, well, and maybe shouldn't we normalize for that? They should do the same thing for altitude. It's like, you get spotted with, like 2.5 points.
Spotted, totally.
Yeah, that's only fair.
I agree,
like,
I agree.
Why not run it that way? and you're exactly right, Brooke. The way that Deandre has been playing lately, again, I think really kind of, if you had any, I think there was maybe an inclination to be a little bit concerned, particularly after kind of some of the stuff you hear about the way that his tenure went in Phoenix. And then, he comes out and struggles a little bit. And, because, like, again, as a center, like, you are really dependent on other guys on the team to help you out in ways that guards and forwards don't really have to contend with. Forwards a little bit more. Guards, like, I want the ball, give me the ball. Like, so if you kind of saw the initial kind of the way that he played, and then he has injury, and then he's out for a while, I could see people being like, oh, geez, like, what's going on here? Like, what situation we get ourselves into? But when you see the way that he's been playing lately, it's like, okay. Yeah. Like that's the guy who was the number one pick and who played a really important role on a team that could have very, very possibly have won a championship. And so, he had two really good games there. I mean, the first game, and maybe not as much, but Scoot had a fantastic game in that one as well, which, we'll talk about that here in a minute. But in that second game especially, 27 points, 13 of 19 shooting for Deandre to go with 9 rebounds, 4 assists. Deandre's got more of an assist game than I think I recognize too. And again, that's one of those things where it's like, until you get that on-court time, until you get those reps with guys, it's like, you can't unlock a guy's passing because it's like, I don't know where this guy's going to be yet. Like, I can't read your eyes yet. Like, we don't have that ability to kind of know where we're all going to be on the court. And so, like, I can't make those kind of like touch passes to you 2 months ago that now I think we're starting to see. And the one that really I remember, and I think I used it for the promotion of our last podcast, was in the Philadelphia game where he had that, like, someone passed it to Deandre, and then in one motion he passed it to Matisse at the 3-point line.
Which Jokic has down pat, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's got that.
Crazy.
Well, and, like, the ball in Jokic's hand, too.
I don't even think he gets
like a tangelo.
But
like,
I don't even know if he actually gets control of it.
Yeah, it's more of like
a volleyball tap.
or like, and really, it's more even like it's kind of like water polo, kind of
Totally.
like in the way that like he kind of manipulates the ball.
Sorry, that just really stood out to me.
I interrupt you all the time, and like I try not to do it as much, but I do, and I'm always like, God, Casey, shut up. And so no, you're always free to pipe in, Brooke.
Okay,
and so like seeing the way that he's been playing lately really makes you feel like, yeah, okay, like not only does it make you feel, I think, better about just the future going forward and how he's playing, but I also think it's instructive too, just about like things take some time, you know, and like for a team that is basically almost brand new, like, yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time for these things to kind of get up to speed. And, you know, in the interim, like, it's not always going to look great. And you understand why people can kind of start to feel a little whingy about maybe the way things are going. But, you know, I think with Deandre, you're really starting to understand it. In this last 10 games, averaging 15.6 points on 58% shooting from the field and 91% shooting from the free throw line.
Whew.
Now, Deandre is not shooting a lot of free throws. It'd be nice if you get to the line a bit more. But he's hitting them at a really good rate. And also, he's like he's a good jump shooter.
He's
like
a great
again,
jump
like
shooter.
whenever he puts it up, like in the paint, I'm always like, oh, it's cash.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
so. And he's also averaging almost 9 rebounds, 1.7 assists. Again, that's in the last 10. And it really seems like he's starting to kind of really figure out averaging a double-double for the season as well, 13.8 points, 10.2 rebounds, 1.6 assists. And I think if everyone stays healthy, and again, it kind of depending on what happens to the deadline. As of right now, I'm not feeling like a whole lot's going to happen, but, you know, I've been wrong constantly, so who's to say? But once I think we get past the deadline, like I think what we've been seeing from Deandre, what we've been seeing from Ant, what we've been seeing from Deandre and Malcolm and Deandre and Scoot, like those things I think are those relationships on the court, I think are going to be the really important things going into the last couple months of the season. And the fact that he's already playing well now, and it seems like there's some momentum being carried into the post-deadline Trailblazers, I think, again, that gives you really something to kind of pay attention to and to be interested in as we kind of go into I don't say the dog days of the NBA season, but definitely the kind of like, you know, after the trade deadline, teams that are kind of playoff teams are kind of gearing up for that, and teams that aren't are, you know, kind of figuring out what's next for them. So that for me is something that definitely I'll be paying attention to in the second half of the season.
So true, all of it. Yeah, when he missed a bunch of games, you know, and then it's hard to say because not many of us live in a nearly 7 foot tall body, you know, like the injuries, you just got, I don't even like saying the word, but you got to really be careful with that.
Yeah.
With big guys. I mean, look at Joel Embiid right now, you know, like you just got to be really careful with rushing.
That's a situation.
That's a situation coming back. And so I applaud that he, at least, you know, him and our amazing, you know, training staff, that they said, you know, we got to make sure that you're good to go. And think of if he had come back a little bit earlier and wasn't 100% or wasn't able to play at the level we're seeing him play. Who knows? Then you go back, and that messes with your mind a lot. So what he continued to say, because you and I were talking to him a lot when he first came back, that, you know, I just needed to make sure I was 100%, and I feel 100%. He's like, my wind is even good. I was a little concerned about, you know, my fitness when I come back. He didn't even say he was concerned. He just said it was not an issue. Like I was looking for it, waiting to feel it, didn't feel it. I felt great. So, but to see him play at that level, you're right. You're like, dang, that is why he went number one. I mean, all these skills that are to have that high, that level of skill on so many different levels, I mean, different areas at his height, like the passing. As you mentioned, I didn't know that he had that in him. I'd seen him make some nice passes, but consistently good passing in these last however many games. And I agree with you. He seems completely, I mean, I trust any shot he takes in the paint. So if he can continue to play at this level and you just continue the familiarity, getting to know your teammates with consistency, with he and Ant especially, which has obviously been somewhat of a theme with Ant and DA. And today when Casey and you and I go to practice, I'm going to try to talk to both of them about it because we want to talk about it in the next game about, you know, every game feeling like, okay, I'm getting this teammate of mine a little bit more. Okay, I'm feeling him out a little bit more, and that can only increase with every game played. So I've been super impressed with DA, and I'll tell you this, like this is so specific to me, but in my role, but I really wanted them to pull that game out because I was like, DA, not like no one loves a walk-off. I mean, players aren't like dying for it, but like he deserves one. Like he deserved a walk-off because he had every one of these performances, unfortunately, have not come in wins. One of them, we went with Ant because he had the game winner. Totally made sense. But with DA, like that level he played with, especially in that second game in Denver, I was like, let's pull this out because I want to hear what he has to say right now about the way he's been playing. And he talks to us, pregame and stuff like that. So we still get to talk to him, but I wanted him to have that, that little shine afterwards because he's played at that level that he deserves it.
And he's a good post-game interview,
too. He's a great interview.
Particularly, when when he's not feeling good, it comes across, but otherwise, even after losses, like he's very kind of he does a good job of kind of explaining what he's thinking and feeling, and and also always makes a point to kind of try to put it back on the team. So yeah, he and I'm assuming he probably hasn't done a post game with you this season.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
That's why
that was the subtext there that I don't think you. No.
In my mind, I figured everyone knows that, but I should be more. That he hasn't yet, and not that he hasn't been deserving of one, because like I said, the Ant had that great game winner. A night of Dame's return, that was the story of the night.
No, you got to go with the Ant there.
But Da was fantastic in that game, and he's been ever since. So, looking forward to everyone kind of getting comfy at home and getting a practice in today. I assume they're having something else with some kids today, like a little camp, and so that's always good bonding time. We'll do that today after practice later in the evening, and then get together tomorrow. I assume. I'm just assuming, and just kind of. There really is something to not be on the road. There's something to be home and know you're going back to your own bed, and just you can find a comfort level that you can attack games in a different way than when you're on the road. And that's why it's so interesting to me how some teams play better on the road. That's another study. There are so many studies I'm interested in, but how some teams for some odd reason, when they're on the road and things are going fast and you're just like bam, bam, bam. You don't even know where you're going. You don't know what city you're in. You don't know what room number you are, but you just, maybe there's a freedom of that where you play well. And it's interesting to me how some teams play better on the road and better at home. But for this group, just getting to know each other more, I think being at home is probably the better choice.
Yeah. Speaking of DA and being at home, do you see that DA has a bowling alley in his house?
No, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, he posted a photo of his dog that was running on the lanes, and I was like, wait a minute, is that a bowling alley?
That's awesome.
And he's like, yeah, I need to get everyone over there. I was like, yeah, is there just an entrance where I can go into your house and just use the bowling alley?
There.
Because also it's bowling alleys are hard to find these days. They used to be all over the place, and now they've every bowling alley that used to be in Portland is now a condo bunker. So DeAndre, save the bowling community in Portland by opening that place up. That was some really not my style of art.
Really?
It's those stylized photos of the Monopoly guy, and it looks like half graffiti, and it's not my bag.
What's the name of the art that E.T. loved, the sculptures?
Cause, I think, yeah. Which also, I don't want to go on my young dude art is terrible rant.
Art is subjective. But
it is, but
I found out how much one of those costs.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
that it's more about the money than it is about the actual thing itself. And they're rooking you guys. Don't buy that stuff. Buy a painting. Buy a Rodin copper sculpture. Don't buy.
Go to Terry Porter's estate sale.
Which it sounds like it went great.
And it's still going.
Oh, it's still going. Mm-hmm. So you can just roll up to Terry Porter's house right now and get something?
Last night I watched on the news. They said there are still items that did not sell, and it was continuing to roll. And there was a crazy line out the door.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the morning of. I doubt it was. I wasn't live because it was already dark out and that line was light out. But they said it is still going. There are still items to be sold, and that someone, what channel, I think it was KGW, they said, Terry has not made an appearance. I think he's there. They said a lot of people at the estate sale kept asking, wondering if he was going to pop in. He hadn't made one. Not to say he won't, but he hasn't made one yet. But I didn't know about it until we were on the bus on the way to the game, and I just was on Twitter, and I saw someone talking about they were holding up a smaller shovel that one of
I saw that actually. Yeah,
I got this from the Terry Porter estate sale, and I looked over at Michael. I go, "What is Terry? Is TP okay?" He's like, "Yeah, he's having." I'm like, oh, when your mind hears estate sale, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, is everything all right?" But yeah, he's downsizing apparently, and so he's not going anywhere, but he just wants to downsize to a smaller place, and so. Liquidize, or liquidate. I don't know.
Yeah, I follow his daughter on Instagram, and she's really into like jewelry stuff. And I wanted to be like, they're kind of cooking your dad in the comments about some of the home decor you have there. Which when you open up your home to and like especially if you've lived there for a long time, it's like everyone's gonna have some dated items in there that maybe you look at and be like, oh, that kind of makes me look like a dork. But
I don't know if it was, but there was a painting. In the shot, and it was afar, so I couldn't really tell. Looked like it might have been a Thomas Kincaid.
Oh,
might have.
So I need some boat paintings for the place of the coast. Like, I wonder if he's got any boat paintings.
Well, you know what? He very well might be an analyst on one of our upcoming home games, so I'll ask him if he has any nautical.
Yeah,
decor.
ask him if there's any. Yeah, if he's got anything that would like fit in in kind of a Oregon.
And see if you get an employee discount.
Yeah. No, I mean I'll pay full price. I don't mind.
They actually showed some of the price tags on things that people had bought and then like were coming back to get because they were large. Oh my gosh! Wow. I mean, you have to wonder if some of those items because. They can say I got
it. The answer is yes.
They're sold for more than they were probably for.
No, which shout out to Terry. Get that money.
Genius. That is genius. Yeah. Honestly, I mean, I've learned a lot about this because my mom's cousin passed away, and his wife had passed away like a year before, and they just had one daughter. And my mom didn't want it all to fall on her. It's in Spokane. Actually, it was the cousin she gave one of her kidneys to.
Oh.
Interestingly enough.
Yeah.
So her and a friend kind of spearheaded the whole thing, like to have an estate sale. And it's really smart. There are companies, and one of the gals that ran that actually had a soundbite in the news story last night. But you hire a company, and they come in and really do it all, and then they take a portion of it. But so everyone kind of, I mean, not after a death. I don't see in a Terry Porter situation.
Everybody
like
wins.
I know. I stopped myself. But Terry, everyone wins in that situation.
Well,
because he's going smaller. He can. It's going to people that will appreciate it, and you can say you have something that was in Terry Porter's house. I don't know. I feel like people were pretty excited about it.
Yeah, and I will just say too, that is a win, Brooke. Like you're dead. Like. Yeah, why should the things that you had in your life, like, why should they not go to somebody else or to, like if, obviously a death is generally a difficult thing. Like, yeah, if you could pocket a few bucks out of it, like, what I'm saying is when I die, get all the money out of my death that you possibly can. Like, I don't think there's probably a whole lot there, but if you could sell my body for $20, like great, take
Casey.
it. Like go.
No, donate.
Get
donate
money.
your organs. That's what I'm.
No, donate. No, sell.
Your organs?
They're worth. That's valuable. Like I mean, you can't actually. That's illegal. You can't sell organs in the United States.
I was going to say that would make a.
Though I did read a story a while ago where it's like there's some like. Sometimes people get organs who maybe aren't at the top of the organ list, and
they probably.
I guess what I'm saying too is that like if I think you should be able to sell your organs. Like if you're like, hey, I want $50,000 for my liver, if someone's willing to pay it, I don't know, like why? Like what else would you have that you wouldn't be able to sell to someone if you didn't want it anymore? If you didn't need it anymore because you're dead?
We're gonna have to do some reresearch on this one.
Absolutely,
we've really hit some pretty hot topics here.
We have. Moving on to other Trailblazers point guard, Scoot Henderson, who has not been in town for long enough to probably have an estate sale just yet, but is well on his way to becoming a very nice Portland Trailblazers guard, another in a long line of Portland Trailblazers guards. Has been playing really well lately as well. As I mentioned earlier on in the first game versus the Nuggets, 30 points on 8 of 15 shooting from the field, 11 of 12 shooting from the free throw line. Did you know that was the first free throw that he had missed in like eight or nine games?
I'm well aware because
I was not. So
Tom Haberstroh did a story that he was at 36, I believe, and Steph Curry was leading with 37 straight. Then there was the whole discussion on, do you talk about streaks? Do you not talk about streaks?
Did you guys talk about Matisse?
No. Yes. Tom did talk about Matisse.
Okay,
and so then he said, well, at least he said, what did Tom say about it? He had a good rebuttal, but his rebuttal to talking about the streak with Scoot is that he then still ended up passing Steph for 38. So
nice.
he still has the longest of the year or whatever, longest free throw streak. But when he missed it, then of course, Kevin and Lamar brought up, like, well, do you talk about streaks? Do you not talk about streaks? But it was funny because I was sitting next to Amanda, who works in our PR department, and Fernando, who runs our social. And I said,
Amanda made the trip to Denver?
She did.
Oh, good. Mm-hmm. Good for her.
And yeah, it was great. She sat, we sat next to each other. And then I said, Fernando, did you know that now when he hit the whatever one to pass Steph, I go, do you know that Scoot's leading in free throws made streak? He's like, oh, no, it's not. And I was like, no, we just told. We just talked about it on air. He's like, really? And so it was so funny. Amanda's like, are you sure? So they sat down and went through all the games, and they had their calculators out and writing stuff down. And she's like, no, I think he's at 28. I was like, oh no, did we make a mistake on air? I really doubt, Tom. I mean, that's a pretty big stat to talk about that I doubt there was a mistake made there. And then she didn't realize she hadn't calculated that game in yet. So it was correct.
That game is always it's always hard to tell. It's like, do these stats, are they updated with the actual live data or not? Like I've gotten caught up in that.
Sure,
myself.
Well, it's easy to do. So then when she counted up that night and the game was still going on, she's like, okay, yeah, it's accurate. And they were like, wow. My point in saying all this is that's a very impressive stat for anybody. It's hard to believe. 38 straight, no kidding. Especially coming from a rookie that, I mean, sometimes rookies don't get the calls that they deserve because the refs, not as much as a veteran that's been in the league for a long time that gets calls because they know that they accept contact, and they're just a veteran play. You just get more calls that way. But for a rookie, I asked him afterwards, I'm like that, right? And I asked Coach too. I said, he got to the line so many times for a rookie. How impressive is it? Because we often talk about, and Michael Holden does especially, that getting fouled can be a skill.
It's not. It is a skill.
Yeah, and we used to talk about Dame all the time. Lamar would say Dame is so strong that he wouldn't necessarily take let the contact throw him back because he tried to keep his ground and he wouldn't get calls. If he would have fallen back, that he would have got called. But that's a whole other thing. But for Scoot to be able to get to the line 12, was it 11 and 12? Mm-hmm. That's impressive for anybody, let alone
that's a great night.
A 19-year-old, or was he 20 that day? That was the second game, right?
That was the first.
He is still 19.
He was still 19. Yeah, so the last game of his teens. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing about foul drawing as well, particularly for a guy like Scoot, and you just kind of like maybe think about something too, is that I would say one of the criticisms that at least I've had about Scoot's offensive game is that when he goes to the rim, sometimes it seems like he's trying to go around guys and kind of trying to sometimes his back ends up turned to the basket, and it's like, no man, you gotta go into guys, you gotta go over the top, you gotta hit guys, you can't try to avoid that contact because
I can see
because
that.
One, it's going to make your shot attempt more difficult, and two, the referees are going to see that and they're going to be like, well, we're not going to call foul because you're trying to avoid contact. Mm-hmm. And it feels like more and more to me he's figuring out how to use his athleticism and his ability to get to the basket to draw fouls. And you're right. So in the second game he went 6-6 from the free throw line. First game versus Nuggets, 11-12. He only went to the free throw line twice in the Milwaukee game, but he was great in that game as well too. 9 times, went 9-9 in the Philadelphia game. And he's you see his free throw numbers now, and his percentage is improving, which I'm going to take a little bit of credit for that, by the way.
Okay.
Because I'm looking here at his game log, and I believe he went, I know. So he went 2 of 7 from the free throw line in the January 12th loss to the Timberwolves, 116-93. And I believe in that game was the time that I mentioned that one of the things that bothers me the most when we're on the road is when and this happens a lot, or at least a lot of arenas have this, is where if the opposing team misses 2 free throws in the fourth quarter, you get something. Usually it's Chick-fil-A. And we've been feeding too many opposing fans this year. I can remember on multiple occasions, guys missing 2 free throws, and obviously the arena goes crazy. And in a lot of these games, too, we're already losing. And that's, for me, the worst. It's look, if we're losing and this game is not over in the fourth quarter, but basically over, and we're also missing free throws and they're getting food that, we can't allow that.
I agree.
We can take the loss. We cannot give these fans food. And in that Timberwolves game, I think he had 2 trips to the line where he went 0 for in the fourth quarter. I know he at least had 1. And I remarked it like, hey, we need to get better about this. We cannot be the team that loses and misses free throws in the fourth quarter that allows these people to get free Chick-fil-A. And ever since then, he's shot much better. So he went 7 of 9 the next game, 5 of 5, 2 of 2, 2 of 2, 2 of 2, 3 of 3, 2 of 2, 3 of 3, 0 for 0, 9 of 9, 2 and 2, 11 of 12, 6 and 6.
There you go.
So
no Chick-fil-A for you.
So no Chick-fil-A for anybody there. And yeah, so it's great to see. And again, it's not even just that he's getting to the line and he's making those free throws, because he's also shooting, 90-something% for the season? God, what is he at for the season?
From the line?
Yeah, he's shooting a great percentage from the free throw line, which, 2 things there. 1, the ability to draw fouls is a skill, and he's getting better at that, and I think it shows growth in his offensive game. And 2, generally, it's believed that if you're a good free throw shooter, you can become a good three-point shooter. If you're bad at shooting free throws in college, you're probably not going to become a very good three-point shooter in the NBA. Mm-hmm. But Scoot is a good free throw shooter, and he's an improving three-point shooter as well. And so I think that also gives you a good indication, like, hey, the form is coming around, like the rhythm, having a routine at the free throw line. And these things aren't all applicable to the three-point line, but it's the general notion of having a good form and good feet and knowing kind of what your rhythm is, where you get good three-point shots. Yeah. Like, those are things that I feel like Scoot is starting to learn, and he's really kind of got those extraneous, like, kind of bad shots out of his system, or at least the three-point shots, and like he's taking more elite three-point shots now. And again, I just think it shows a growth in his game that I think you feel really good about. And, even coming off the bench, he's playing good basketball. Like, just feel good about playing good basketball. Agreed. Like, that's all you got to worry about. In his last 10 games, he's shooting 98% from the free throw line, 37% from 3, and 42% from the field in his last 10 games. I believe in his last 5 games, he's shooting better than 50% from both the field and from 3. And, obviously, last 5 games, he's only missed 1 free throw in his last, so he's shooting 90-something%, which is why on my last podcast it's not as good as this one. I mentioned I think Scoot's here's a world-class jinx. Boy, I almost said the F word. I thought that was what you almost said. I think he's going to win Rookie of the Month in February.
How could you not?
Well, because it's a long month. We're on February 6th.
How could you not?
It isn't a long month. It's a too short month. But I think he's going to win 1 before the end of the season, and I think February is a good chance. I feel like the schedule works out pretty well for us. As you mentioned, we're at home a lot. We're playing some teams that we actually might be favored to win at home, up to and including the Pistons game, which we've been not very good this season when we've been favored, but we can get better at that. Obviously, Minnesota's great. Pelicans are great, so those are going to be tough games. And they play the Nuggets and Charlotte and Miami. That Miami game should be an interesting one, too, at the end of the month.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that I like Scoot's chances. I'm planting my flag right now. Scoot Henderson for Rookie of the Month for February.
I like it. He's definitely in the conversation already. I know it's early in the month, but then you think of at least a week off for All-Star. So he just has to have a couple more impactful, three or four more impactful games that will liken themselves to how he's been playing so far. And I think that he's definitely in the conversation, if not winning it. And I think that'd be awesome for him. I think that it would just be such a great. We talk about he already has so much confidence, but just as a teammate, it
doesn't hurt to get a little bit of outside recognition.
It does not hurt, and to know that the whole league is taking notice. That's great for someone coming up, someone in his rookie year who really has been very open and honest with us about knowing the areas he needs to improve in, and we talk about. We've done a couple pregame interviews where I asked him. Not the exact same question, but something similar, like what areas of improvement have you seen in yourself and that you've done a pretty good job of focusing on. And he's always given great answers, like finishing at the rim, using my strength. And to your point about using your strength when you go to the rim to get fouls. And he does do the little thing you're right about, kind of trying to go around someone. And he's really good at finishing that way. Not every single time, but he's made some shots that I'm like, how the heck did he get that to go? But he's just really open about knowing that he's not where he wants to be yet, but he feels very strongly that he'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, for February, do they take into account your Rising Stars performance in Rookie of the Month? Because it is all rookies. They probably don't, but they should. And that's my way to segue that both Scoot Henderson and Shaden Sharp, maybe, playing at the Rising Stars Challenge. I keep thinking that this weekend coming up is going to be All-Star Weekend.
I've thought that the whole time.
And I think it's because since we have 3 days off, you're like, wait a minute, is this the break? So that keeps messing me up, actually, I had that down. I was like, well, we should talk about that next week. But yeah, Scoot in the Rising Stars Challenge for the third time.
Which is so wild.
He's got the experience.
Yeah.
Go out, and it's like there's 4 teams,
rising.
And there's other coaches. So should be interesting to see Scoot at that. As Shaden in this as well. I'm curious if Shaden plays again before the All-Star break. And if he doesn't, he ain't playing in the Rising Stars Challenge. So we'll see how that one shakes out. Real quick here before we wrap up, Brooke, since trade deadline is on Thursday, what is your general trade deadline approach? Like, how do you internalize a trade deadline?
I used to just absolutely go nuts about it and read everything and think of this scenario, that scenario, which makes sense, which makes sense for the team. What personally, what would I like? I think of everything.
Things. Yeah.
I mean,
what will work for me?
Well, honestly, I'm like, well, if that happens, he's, I really like him. I'd love to have him around as, he's great to talk to, interview, and he's a great teammate. That might not make sense for the, the organizational goals. So I really do try to think of every single scenario. How does it work for everyone involved, this specific person, the team? I used to just absolutely digest it all and overthink it. And now, after years of it, I just say, what's going to happen is going to happen. I can sit and stew over it, and I will not play a role in the decision that is made. You know what I mean? Not even close. So I just kind of wait, and that's how I had to. I think the whole situation with Damian really helped me with that too, because there was. Casey and I were, we talk about it every day. What's going to happen what's going to happen with Dame, and it kind of just engrossed me to the point where I'm like, Brooke, what's going to happen is going to happen, and you have no control over it. So there's just sit back and wait, And that's when we just said we're going to wait. Whatever happens, then we'll move on from there. So that's kind of how I approach the trade deadline now. You can't absolutely stay away from it. You're going to see stuff on Twitter. People, have their opinions and their scenarios and all that. But for me, I just don't let my mind go down the rabbit hole, and I just wait, and whatever happens, and then I react to it and move forward from there. So I don't know. That's my least path of resistance. My path of least resistance approach.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, no, that's you laid it out pretty well there, Brooke. Yeah, we have things that we root for as individuals, and then things that we root for as people who want to see the team do well, and things you root for organizationally. Because I feel like the Blazers are in a situation right now too, where it's like they're still in. I don't know if they're in full asset acquisition mode, but they're not bringing back an all-star, and you probably kind of figure that if they do make a deal, it'll probably be sending out a guy who's probably better than the guy you're bringing back in, with the assumption being that guy to be bringing back in would probably be younger and so on and so forth. So yeah, at a certain point when you've done it for so long, you're just like, when I hear it, I'll hear it. Mm-hmm. But that would be the other thing I would say too, is I feel like very, very little buzz going into the trade deadline. I mean, we've already had some decent deals that have already happened, so I think that's part of it. We're in the second year now of the new CBA, which I think, it's much more punitive when you spend a lot of money, so I think teams are kind of reluctant to do that. You had teams, you got Zach LaVine, who is out for the season now, and he was the guy people thought might get traded. You have Joel Embiid, who's going to be out for at least a month now, you would assume. Mm-hmm. Does that change the way that the Sixers approach the deadline? And the reason I'm mentioning these teams, too, is because you had guys who, one, you would assume they were going to make trades, the Bulls. You have a team in Philadelphia who might be looking to be like, hey, we maybe need one more guy. Those are teams that a lot of times make trades, particularly for trades that, the Blazers have those kind of guys. When you take those off the table more and more, and then you have the play-in where more teams feel like they're kind of in the mix. And I also feel like, too, it's such there's no, real, odds-on favorite this year. I think there's probably 3 teams in each conference that feels like, hey, we can win this thing. Yeah. And if they feel like they need to make a move, then that maybe is something the Blazers could help facilitate. But otherwise, it just feels like more like teams are like, no, let's just get healthy and let's see if we can kind of catch lightning in a bottle a little bit. So it doesn't seem to me like there's a whole lot. Doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of names being thrown out there. You hear one or two guys over and over again, and they're like kind of like secondary or tertiary guys anyways. And it's like, is this what the trade deadline is hinging on? Is whether or not a second string center is going to get moved? Like that doesn't really make for a big deadline. So at this point, a few days out, it feels pretty quiet to me.
I agree.
That could change, and a lot of times it just takes one. Like if there's a big move out there that everyone's kind of waiting to happen, if that move does happen, then that can kind of lighten things up. But again, I also don't feel like that move is really out there. So we'll see. But it sounds pretty quiet to me.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Especially as we get closer. Usually it starts getting louder as we get closer, and it's kind of dying down.
Yeah.
Just chit-chat about it, I mean.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Blazers Balcony. Real quick, want to get an update on the Brooke Hearts Your Heart campaign.
Yes.
Brooklyn, how is it going? We are in the fledgling days of the Brooklyn Hearts Your Heart month. How are we doing?
They are fledgling days, but you would not know so.
The cash is flowing?
Oh, my gosh. You guys are amazing. Everyone that is listening that has donated, I thank you from the absolute bottom of my heart. We reached my initial goal is always 5,000 because that's when the Trailblazers will match up to 5,000. And we reached that in between the Denver games. And I joked on air with Kevin. First of all, I thought that he was being funny. Like, we raised, Lamar and I and Travis and Michael raised $100,000. I was like, today, no kidding. He meant in the entirety of the Brooke Hearts Your Heart. We figured that one out later. Anyways, in between the two Denver games, we reached 5,000, which is just unreal, and sitting right now at $5,412.37, which means that the Blazers will match that. So essentially we have $10,412, which is just absolutely amazing, and we're only on day 6. Day 6.
Hey.
Yeah. So
well, and you're wearing that this year's Brooke Hearts Your Heart hat? Okay.
Hat. Yep, Hearts Your Heart hat. And so we went with a baseball cap this year, and I said it last night it was yesterday morning on Hello Rose City with Lacey. She's great. I know her husband Joe. I've known him for a long time, but that was the first time I ever met her, ever. So she was great, and I told her, we went with a nice clean white cap because it reminded me of my college. You ever in college? I don't know. I just feel like the white caps were kind of cool and fun and chill. So went with that. So it's obviously unisex, boys, girls, men, women, kids, whatever. They're for everybody. So pick one up at Rip City Clothing. You can buy them online too.
Hey.
And if you go online to Brooke Hearts Your Heart, trailblazers.com/heart, that is the page. You can obviously read up on hands only, CPR, strokes, signs of a heart attack, so much more. You can get the hat online as well. And also, if you purchase your tickets to the February 27th game against Miami,
which you're going to want to come to anyways.
You're going to want to come to anyways. Might as well buy your tickets on that site because if you buy them there, you get to shoot free throws on the floor afterwards, and then I'll come down and join you, and we'll get pictures and hang out, and it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, so don't if you are going to the Miami Heat game on the 27th of February and you haven't bought your tickets yet, make sure you buy them from trailblazers.com/heart.
Yep, 100%.
So do that. So money goes into the Heart Fund. You get to shoot free throws, which people love.
It's fun.
And, that's
it's like
that's great.
Behind-the-scenes sort of deal. Like, you're right where the players just played a game.
And if you're buying tickets anyways, then it's
yes.
what a additional experience you're getting there.
Thank you.
And you're also do you get a hat if you buy tickets to that game, or that's
no? You can.
Yeah, no, that'd be too much. That'd be too much. No.
We did
buy a hat too.
By the way, we do have more inventory than we've had the last 2 years because we ran out like day one.
Yeah.
So we made sure to have more so people could get them if they want one.
Brooke will give me hats that say I love dogs, but she won't give me one of her.
How do you know I haven't? Maybe I already have one for you. You don't know.
Because you haven't done it for the last 3 years, so I'm just assuming that past behavior is the best indication of future behavior. So.
Why don't you got to tell me these things? Like,
I don't have an enormous head, too. So,
these fit all head sizes.
All head sizes. It's that's good. Well, that's going to do it for this edition. Thank you so much for joining us, as always, on the Blazers Balcony. Go to trailblazers.com/podcast for all of our podcasts. Go to trailblazers.com/heart to purchase tickets for the Brooke Hearts Your Heart campaign, particularly for the game on the 27th versus the villainous Heat. And, we will talk to you next week.
Sounds great. Peace out, everybody.